The newly minted opposition leader says he doesn't want to turn the Liberal Party into One Nation light and understands why voters are changing their allegiances. One Nation leader Pauline Hanson told the media in Brisbane today she wasn't concerned about a more conservative Liberal Party taking support back from the minor party.
They've changed the leader, but they're still on a dead horse. And what I hear all the time from Susan Lee, and as I'm hearing from Angus Taylor, is motherhood statements. The people have had enough. They are hurting. And they want strong leadership. They want to know where the politicians, the political parties stand on their policies. What are you going to do for us?
One Nation MP Barnaby Joyce joins me now for his reaction. Thanks for coming on the show this afternoon. Look, we've seen the bad polls and now a Liberal leadership change. Do you and One Nation take partial credit for this realignment that we've seen in the Liberal Party this week?
Yes. Obviously, they're reacting to polls, and the polls have been driven by the rise of One Nation support because of One Nation's clarity, its unity and its strength. And what we saw, and I wish Angus the best, and I congratulate him on attaining the leadership, and I commend Susan for the work she did taking on the poison chalice of first leader after a loss. Someone had to break the glass. Susan did it, and now she's retiring, and I wish her all the very, very best and congratulate her on her career. But if you really drill down through Angus's speech, we heard, when you hear words like our values and our principles, but people don't actually define what they are. When we hear people say, oh, we don't want the wrong immigrants into Australia, well, define what you mean by wrong. Well, what is a wrong immigrant? We say, well, we're going to have stronger economic policies. Well, I hope you don't have weaker ones. But what exactly does that mean? And see, it's straight away, it's all the, to be quite frank, motherhood statements that you would expect. And I understand, because they don't want to make a mistake on the first presser. But they're going to be judged by the details of the policy, not the overarching desire to placate people's feelings, because people aren't that stupid. They're going to look down at the details. I mean, what we're saying quite clearly is we want to bring down the cost of living, and we're going to do that by getting more baseload power through coal onto the system. Now, a lot of people find it, they don't like to say the word coal-fired power. They feel awkward about it. It's against their religion, but it's not for us. When we talk about immigration, we say we want a stock take of what Australia is able to hold. Like, how many houses have you got? Are your outpatients crowded? Are the schools going along all right? Are you stuck on the roads in the cities during the day? I mean, we need to understand this from a logical point of view, rather than just sort of a statement, we don't want bad immigrants. I don't think even the Labor Party wants bad immigrants. So, there's got to be more detail put on the bone, and it will be interesting in the seat of Farah, where they're dealing with such things as the review of the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, and there are a lot of farmers and a lot of hairdressers in town who say, well, this has affected our economy and this has affected the wealth that came into our area. And because this coincides with the South Australian state election and having a debate in Farah where water is one of the biggest issues, it's going to be interesting. And for the Nats and the Libs, well, which policy, if they're both there, which one do we listen to?
You've spoken there about, I guess, the failure of the coalition to clearly articulate its policies. You also talk about the fact that Susan Lee's resignation or her plans to leave Parliament will set up this by-election in Farah, which is going to be incredibly interesting. We've seen Pauline Hanson today saying that One Nation will run. Can you give us a bit of a preview? Is it going to be a high-profile candidate, and do you think that you can win the seat?
We have heaps of candidates already asking. The applications for candidacy are overwhelming, and we have some very, very good applicants within that. And I'll leave it up to Pauline to go through the process of assessment with the local branch members, for which we have a lot of them in the seat of Farah. And between the branch members, Pauline, the executive, I'm sure that we'll put forward a formidable candidate, and we have some really big issues that are going there at the moment. Overarching things such as the cost of living, overarching things such as immigration, but particular to the area, such things as the review on the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. This is going to be an interesting election because the rhetoric on one will be fleshed out against what is said at the state elections that are following it, the subsequent to it. So I'm looking forward to campaigning, and I'm sure all the others are, and I'm sure Pauline's ready to get down there, and we'll, in due course, have a candidate to put before you, and you can ask them all the pertinent questions.
Barnaby, I'll circle back to immigration in just a second, but I wanted to ask you about preferences in Farah. Where do you think that One Nation should place the Liberals and the Nationals?
Well, I bet you all of them will try and put us One Nation last. That's the only way in many instances they can beat One Nation, is they say they're different to the Labor Party, is different to the Liberal Party, is different to the National Party, but when it comes to the preference flows, they're awfully similar in what they wish to do with One Nation. But that would be foolish on behalf of the Liberals or the Nats, because obviously we're polling higher than them at the moment, and a federal election will undoubtedly come, in which case you can't just turn around and all of a sudden be our mates then. I presume that the Labor Party will put us last. I would hope that they'd have the discussion with us. That's what we want. It's new days and it's a new dynamic in the party, and we look forward to discussing it with all people. And with the independents, well, it's a question for them.
But what about One Nation? What will you guys do?
Well, we'll look at the policies, the alternate policy structures, and within the alternate policy structures, we'll think what's best for Australia and for the people of Farah and for Griffith and for Albury and for Hay. Well, that'll be One Nation. And then what's second best, and we'll work out which party has the second best, which party has the third, which people are just going there saying, well, I'm everything to everybody but nothing in particular. I just want to smile a lot, look nice, and say, wherever the wind blows me, that's where my heart goes.
All right.
They'll go last.
On immigration, what did you think of Angus's rhetoric today? He said he wanted lower numbers and higher standards. Did you think that it sounded quite similar to One Nation's approach?
What numbers? What was a lower number? What actually quantified it? And a better standard? What are those standards? I mean, if you say you want to do a better job on immigration, I think that's a unity ticket. We've said quite clearly how you actually go about the process and the stock take of what Australia is able to absorb, and starting from that premise, you have a much more rational approach to what you can bring in. And we've stated quite clearly, if it's a contractual relationship, if it's an inclination that from where you come from, we have a greater prevalence of people in the crime pages or on social security, then that has to be a reference to whether that is a smart move to go back to the well, which in some instances problems come from.
All right, let me ask you this. Not so long ago, you were a member of the coalition. Do you think with Angus Taylor leading the party, it would make it easier for One Nation to enter a coalition with the Liberal Party? Is that something that you can see happening in the future?
Well, as Pauline said, we'd discuss supply and confidence. For your listeners, if you remove supply or confidence, the government falls over. We do not want a chaotic Australia. But beyond that, it's the discussion of what they have on policy and where they want to go with Australia. But we'll be focusing on One Nation voters, One Nation members, and an Australia that is better served by clarity, unity, and strength. Mm-hmm. And I've even just in this show, I've outlined some of the policies. So what I've heard so far is people with motherhood statements saying we have no policies, and we come on television, show you policies, and I think you can work the difference out for yourself.
Okay. I just wanted to ask you very quickly, because we don't have much time, but why do you think voters are flocking to One Nation when they so resoundingly rejected Peter Dutton's more conservative style of politics at the election? What's changed since then?
Well, I think Mr. Dutton had two positions. He had a strong position at the start and a sort of an amorphous position at the end, and people voted against the amorphous position because, in essence, it started becoming similar to the Labor Party. People, you see it everywhere in the street. That's what I've said is what they want: clarity, unity, strength. We're not afraid of people not liking us. Obviously, we don't go out for them to not like us. But people have a strong opinion about One Nation because they know exactly what we stand for. And that's why the vote's growing. And because people want you to be electorally honest with them as to exactly who you are. That's what One Nation does.
Barnaby Joyce, thanks so much for your time this afternoon.
Absolute pleasure.